Transformers Prime is fondly remembered as a show with an epic story with even grander proportions, well-developed and likable characters, good CG animation, many good fight scenes with even better choreography, and a lot of respect for the Transformers franchise as a whole. The episode in the show itself begins with Cliffjumper, voiced by The Rock, driving past his own kind in the canyons of Jasper, Nevada. He's talking to his partner and best friend, RC, telling quite the story.
So there I am on the lookout when out of nowhere these high beams light up my rear view. And then it hits me. I'm illegally parked.
Another parking ticket?
Better, the boot.
Big metal tire clamp, impossible to remove.
Bingo! So the local police do their thing, and I let them get all the way down the block. That's when I kick off my new shiny shoe, and bang!
New York's finest soil themselves.
You know me, RC. Mess with Cliffjumper.
And you get the horns.
Which introduces us to the
Autobot rule number 1. Keep a low profile.
After their exchange, he rolls up on a Decepticon Energon mine, refuses backup, and gets surrounded.
Fair warning, boys. I'll put a few dings in ya.
After a main character one-liner, he attacks the cons as the scene transitions, showing us his teammates. Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, RC, Ratchet, and Bulkhead. Once we transition back though, we see Cliffjumper getting pretty overwhelmed, having to resort to a shootout in what's essentially a giant gas station, and yet still lose against the nameless cons. As he gets dragged into custody, he keeps up the cool persona.
Scream. It's been a while.
Leading to Starscream's first act on screen, snuffing out his spark. This subverts many tropes and expectations held by cartoons at the time, and you know what? Even now. No, especially now. Cliff was the first character we were introduced to. He seemed cool, charming, and quick-witted. Everything expected in a main character. He was also the good guy, the hero, and this was an animated show. His death established that this was going to be a darker take on Transformers than the animated iterations before it, and also added a layer of risks to the rest of the characters on both the good and the bad sides, since death is now confirmed to be possible. It also made Starscream seem formidable, so whenever he says,
"Why slay just one Autobot when we still have the advantage of surprise?"
we are far more inclined to believe him. The rest of the bots arrive at Cliff's coordinates just in time to see his life signal go offline, as RC finds the horn of her fallen friend. Later in the episode, a funeral is held for Cliff, and based on the things that were said and the way they are said, we get to know how the Autobots feel about Earth and the humans inhabiting it.
If Cliff's gone, standing around here sulking won't bring him back. So unless anyone minds, I think I'll get back to protecting humankind.
The way RC says this line not only encapsulates her grief, but makes it out as if she blames Cliff's death on the idea of protecting the humans above themselves.
Optimus, helping humans will only result in more tragedy.
This may seem as if it's dumbing it down for the audience whenever Ratchet says this line, but I think it works well with his character. Ratchet is a scientist. He thinks logically, so although still feeling emotional over Cliff's death, his response wouldn't be as rooted in emotion as RC's would. It shows that Ratchet agrees, and that it means enough to him that he'd even make his stance to Optimus known, even if only for the record. I find Optimus's response to the exchange to be the best though. Instead of arguing, explaining why he's right and they're wrong, all he says is,
"Your opinion is noted."
Showing that he hears his old friend, acknowledges his opinion, and may not even disagree with the statement that more tragedy will befall them if they continue to protect humans. But nevertheless, he isn't wavering from his morals and from what he believes is right. We're next shown one of the human protagonists of the series. His name is Jack, and in my opinion, his introduction isn't very good. It's established that he's not cool, with people making fun of him at his job and stealing the food without paying. When RC pulls into the parking lot to avoid cons, he tells his mom he could never go to a dance.
Experience suggests I should never cut a rug, unless I'm installing carpet.
and then decides to sit on a motorcycle that doesn't even belong to him. Soon after, he decides to start talking to it, which obviously gets him made fun of by girls he goes to school with. It's a cliche and tropey scene with some of that first episode animation. Once the cons circle back around, RC leaves with Jack hitching a ride. When he screams, his mouth closes before he's done, and it always makes me laugh for literally no reason. Which again, it's the first episode, I'm not docking points. Just wanted to point it out, but she drops him off, but the cons still pursue him, so she has to circle on back around and pick him up. Once they're both resuming the chase, Bumblebee drifts in to distract, giving the duo enough time to make it to an area that introduces us to a human character named Raph as he plays with a remote control car, and the cons catch up. Out of sight and out of options, RC and the cons transform and fight, with RC getting overwhelmed and Bumblebee dropping in to help. Due to how Cliff's fight earlier went, this scene is more believable, and in turn has more tension. B gets distracted by stepping on Raph's car, apologizes, and then gets taken down by the cons. Raph saves him by yelling, "Leave him alone!" And the directing shines yet again as Raph and Jack run around this seemingly large structure, but the moment the Decepticon comes into view, the structure looks small compared to it. It really puts the size of everyone into perspective, especially when it comes to how they all relate to the environment surrounding them. It's small, but it leaves a big impact, especially whenever Bulkhead arrives, towering over not only his allies, but the cons as well, forcing them to retreat.
What took you?
Traffic.
Later that day, at the base, Optimus, due to his concern for human life established earlier, sends B and C out to retrieve the boys from earlier. Due to Jack not wanting to go, an argument happens and they have to include a human named Miko since they carelessly let her spot them. This entire ordeal felt very forced, shoved in for the sake of putting Miko in before the credits roll, and it's definitely the worst part of this whole episode. I mean, RC knows they are robots in disguise, so why break that disguise? At the base, exposition happens, and in the end, the kids learn about the war and the warriors involved, establishing the lore of the Battle of Cybertron, and ending with Megatron arriving to Earth. As much as I do think this was a very good first episode, it is very rushed, and they shove far too many characters into 20 minutes. They establish Jack as unpopular, awkward, and reserved, Raph as lonely, intelligent, and curious, and Miko as brash, energetic, and adventurous. Other than that though, there isn't much to know about them, and due to their inclusion, it takes away from the development of the bots as well. Bumblebee can't speak, Optimus is stoic and caring, Bulkhead is big, Starscream has a big ego and an even bigger menace, and Ratchet is logical as well as Optimus Prime's
Old friend.
All that being said, RC has the most development. Seeing as she is grieving, though we can't say that any of her interactions aside from the very beginning can really be used to establish her personality. She does give some hints that she used to be accustomed to being alone, but when she's told to bring in Jack, it doesn't seem to give time to explore that, nor the grief that she's feeling. We get to know that her and Cliff were partners and felt like they understood each other better than anyone else could understand them, since when they're apart they are.
We're alone wherever we travel on this rock cliff.
I wouldn't have included the kids into this episode, and if I had to include one due to obligations of some sort, then I'd put Raph in first. He's the most inconsequential of the characters. He wouldn't detract from Marcy's pain like Jack's complaining does. He wouldn't be too much when it comes to the tone like Miko's energy is. The episode could retain the somber, grounded, grieving feel that the characters never had the time to portray. All in all, a good episode with some pacing and tone issues that introduced way too many characters. If they spent time focusing on a core few, then it would have been more impactful and therefore left more of an impression. Which is what you would want if you're trying to convince people to stick around with a show. Cliff Jumper's death did a good enough job by itself though, and as proof of that, I watched it when it aired and then kept up all the way to the finale, but we aren't there yet. This is part 1 of a 5-parter for this series, so we're not even close to done. I'm gonna cover all of them and count them all as how it began, since I'm pretty sure they aired back to back to back to back to back. Let's keep going. The episode begins with an actual introduction to Megatron, where he instantly demands his presence by proving to be more fearsome than Starscream, and we saw what he was capable of. Megatron was apparently on a big trip, looking not only for an army but of another powerful item as well, Dark Energon. Scream offers Cliff's corpse as a test subject for something that is rumored to do, revive the dead. I really like this scene, the shift in dynamic between the last episode Starscream and this episode Starscream, all due to Megatron's arrival, really solidifies Megatron as a threat, and justifies how he eats up the scenery on screen. If the guy that snuffed out Cliffjumper fears the slightest of missteps around him, then there must be a reason why, right? Let's continue the episode in order to find out. We switch over to the Autobot base, where some exposition occurs regarding the kids that thankfully gets interrupted by yet another human character.
Agent Denozo, NCIS, what do you got?
Close. Special Agent Fowler. He's the liaison between the Autobots and the US government that the Bayverse established as necessary, and although he comes off as quite the authoritarian, he does become more likable as the series goes on. After he lectures the group, and the kids stay out of sight, we get introduced to a gag that we'll see many times throughout the series.
Bulkhead, I needed that!
And the government's use of force gets brought up if only for a fleeting moment.
Perhaps you can condone widespread human casualties, Agent Fowler. I, however, cannot.
Pointing out how non-combatants become victims in human versus human conflicts very often on our planet, and that there were threats here before the Decepticons ever became one. We were that threat. We then switch over to Megatron and Starscream as they use the Dark Energon in order to revive Cliff. But instead of being his normal self, he is a more feral version, a zombie of who he used to be. He tanks shots, showing his newfound tolerance for pain, and dispatches the guards before being cut in half and pushed into the mines below by Megatron. Seeing the guards get absolutely ravaged by Cliff, but Megatron not even break a sweat, adds more evidence to the menace that he presents, along with the energon that he has brought along with him. To double down on the fact that Cliff himself was brought back to life, not just his body moving, but literally given new life, his life signal pops onto the Autobots' radar and gives the team hope that he's still alive, causing them to rush to the mines. After a fight scene that you'll have to watch the episode to see in all of its head-rolling glory, literally, they send RC up to Cliff's body, but as she fails to pull his upper half up, she gets a look at the zombified version of her former partner, and has to lose him all over again, with that as their final memory. No time to grieve in the midst of war, Starscream detonates the Energon as the team barely make it out alive. When they get back to base, Miko downplays how battles can end in death, and Jack takes a parental role by ushering her away from the bots. RC goes weak from the effects of Dark Energon, collapsing and has to be helped to the sickbay. This scene not only adds more layers to Dark Energon and its effect beyond zombie juice, but also gives the kids a more realistic understanding of whom the Transformers are. They aren't just robots, they feel, they get hurt, they get sick, and they die, adding a layer of common ground between the two that they never quite understood before, followed by them explaining the human customs of curfew to Optimus, so they can get taken back home from the bots without jeopardizing Optimus's idea of keeping them constantly protected. RC takes Jack home, B takes Raph, and Balk takes Miko. Once RC and Jack get to his house though, he continues to not understand RC's feelings by saying,
"What, you think you're the only one with problems?"
Showing his immaturity at the beginning of the series, giving him something for us to hopefully see him develop. We also get introduced to his mother, June, where she is established as a normal, caring, worrying parent, and due to her scrubs, we can guess she works in some sort of medical field as well. The little things. We end the episode with Megatron shoving Dark Energon into his spark chamber, which is essentially his heart, as Ratchet drips his own sample of it onto a broken piece of equipment, bringing it to life. This also shows that Energon's effects can be tested on normal machinery, which will come into play later, while also showing that Dark Energon can breathe life into not only the dead, but into the inanimate as well, ending the second part. The episode begins with 3 different scenes of the Autobots bonding with their human partners. RC does a wheelie with Jack on the back while Miko and Balk put pedal to the metal as they speed down a cliffside. The more notable one though is B and Raph. They are racing each other, but within a safe space. Raph is playing with a controller as B plays with his own steering wheel, using his monitor as a screen. This shows Raph's reserved nature, a stark contrast to the others, while also displaying how much B enjoys Raph's company. B is a muscle car. His speed means a lot to him, but he's willing to slow down if only to be on the same wavelength as Raph. It's a quick scene, but it resonates throughout the series. We then switch to Ratchet as he's thankful for the quiet while he continues testing the Dark Energon. Sadly, his quiet is interrupted by the machine from before that learned from Bulkhead.
I needed that!
Which could be a hint, considering that's the same machine that Bulkhead did that to. Thankfully though, Optimus saves the day, destroying the machine, and from experience alone confirms,
I have a grave suspicion, Ratchet. Dark Energon.
Speaking of which, we're looking at a load of it as Megatron takes a shard, ominously orders Starscream to
Quit groveling and await my command.
and then flies off. Here we get introduced to Soundwave, as Starscream tries to manipulate him, leading to a good pun.
Lord Megatron has not been of sound judgment since his return.
And an even better comeback.
Quit groveling and await my command.
We learn Soundwave, like Bumblebee, either lacks the means to speak or has a reason he refuses to. Ratchet and Optimus are discussing the Dark Energon, what that could mean and why it's probably for raising an undead army. Ratchet raises a good question though.
Well, Megatron will need to break quite a few toaster ovens. I mean, where on this world would he find that many Cybertronian dead?
Getting interrupted by the arrival of the team. After assessing the situation, Prime decides only him and Ratchet will hunt down Megatron, saying,
For the moment, it's only reconnaissance.
Then why do I hear an edge in your voice?
RC, much has changed in the last 24 hours, and we all need to adapt.
My pistons may be rusty, but my hearing is sharp as ever.
After our duo go through the space bridge, RC and B instantly break the rules and go on patrol, leaving Bulkhead in charge of the kids. We learn of Miko's music taste as she makes my ears bleed before Agent Fowler interrupts. Thank God for Fowler. He shows up complaining, barking orders, and even sees the kids. Getting even more frustrated, he gets brought down to size as Bulkhead puts him in his place.
It's for your own protection.
We're protecting them.
Is that so? Well, maybe you can explain that to my superiors at the Pentagon.
Don't use that phone, it's out of order.
Although starting off angry, seeing the kids turned into more of a concern, making his character seem not all bad. Once he leaves the base, he calls his superior, getting listened in by Soundwave, and putting a target onto his back. Laserbeak goes after him, and although Fowler puts up one heck of a fight, it doesn't end up being enough as he is captured by the Khans. Quick thinking though, he hits the SOS button, sending warning of his state to the Autobot base. Prime and Ratchet discuss that towards the end of the war, one of the largest battles took place on Earth, since things like Energon and other resources were stashed on planets such as ours, possibly foreshadowing more to be found as the story unfolds. He also states that,
And I fear Megatron's memory is as long as history.
So I guess we now know where that army is coming from. Back to Fowler, he's getting questioned by Scream, leading to him saying,
You treat all your guests this nice? Autobot. That one of them coin-operated, wash my own car places?
and changing the conversation from questioning to torture. Once Raph figures out Fowler's location because,
maybe I can narrow it down. About 5 years ago, the government started microchipping their agents. You know, like owners do with pets.
which I mean, believable. Bulkhead and Miko bridge there in order to rescue him. Miko's loud mouth, though, blows the stealth part and causes, well...
Miko, look away! Turn your head away!
As well as him calling in backup. The backup can't back anyone up, though, because Jack and Raph take off after Miko, leaving nobody able to bridge him back to base.
RC to base. Come in. Jack, listen up. We need you to bridge us back. Hello?
Starscream is starting his interrogation of Fowler, leading to some good dialogue.
And Fowler, I have one simple request that will save your family the pain of grieving.
I got an issue with the customer service around here. Can I speak to the manager?
I make the decisions here. I am in charge. Bring the prod. I ask nicely one last time. The Autobot base.
Sure thing, buddy. Right after you eat my Star-Spangled Shorts.
Fowler's looking pretty dang cool, I do gotta say. What isn't cool though is, well...
For the first time in my life, Optimus, I had hoped that you were wrong.
Optimus, been well? I see you brought your trusty watchdog. I was certain he'd be convalescing in a scrapyard by now.
Why don't you invite him down here for a chat?
Megatron uses the Dark Energon to start the zombie apocalypse, and the way it's shot here, intercut with Ratchet's horrified face, does a good job raising the stakes and leaving us hooked for the next episode. We start the episode in the same place we left off since
not even the dead are freed from his warmongering.
Optimus shoots a ton of them, but it's like eating fries one by one. It doesn't look like you're getting anywhere. So Optimus decides to order Ratchet to retreat, leading to...
No! I shall stand with you, Optimus. You may require a medic when this is over with.
Showing that behind his rough exterior, Ratchet is a loyal friend and a trusted ally. Makes us wonder what the war veteran is actually capable of, and gives him another line that both shows his wit and his strength.
I recommend dissection. The smaller the pieces, the better.
Meanwhile, Jack and Raph show up in time to get shot at. Thankfully, the cons are stormtroopers and Bulkhead is a hero, swooping in and saving them before rushing back into the thick of it. His way of not only avoiding the gunfire by going under the ship where they can't aim, but also getting onto the ship, shows that there's more to his head than its bulky size, and more to his character than pure muscle. He engages the cons, throwing one off the roof, beheading another while using its body to block bullets. The way his fighting is sped up does look a little goofy considering his size, but the fact that he's taking on an entire army does help. After finding out Miko hitched a ride, he gets her out of the firefight up top by escaping into the ship. Inside, he continues to show his fighting prowess and his quick thinking as he dispatches anyone that gets in his way. Jack and Raph, however, get captured by the cons and taken aboard the ship, where somehow they get saved by RC&B. They bring up in passing to fill the hole in the plot of how they got on board.
Appreciate you clearing the front door for us.
So I won't hold it against them, although an argument can be made that it still leaves a lot of questions. We cut back to Fowler taking his torture like a man and, yet again, talking some serious cool guy lines.
In the old steel mill, or was it under that carnival's funhouse?
Meanwhile, we get some clever camera work as we watch the bots and cons fight from the human's perspective. This was one of my favorite parts of the Bayverse movies. So seeing it replicated here, but in an arguably more serious way, shows the scale of the conflict and the dangers that would be presented if the Transformers fought in a populated area. Speaking of populated area, Ratchet and Optimus are still kicking tailpipe, although getting progressively weaker due to the exposure to the Dark Energon that was established with RC in the last episodes. And the duo get overwhelmed to an almost deadly degree. Optimus has a lot of kick to him though, causing a compliment from the Mega Man himself.
After all these years, Optimus, still at the top of your game.
Let's not look over the fact that Ratchet may have had his arm broke here, and yet is still fighting afterwards. Man may be an ambulance, but he fights like a tank. Team Rescue split off, leaving the kids in a safe space where their own tension is the most danger they're in. Due to bickering, Raph breaks down and rushes away. As the youngest of the group, this comes off rather naturally, especially due to his reserved nature that has already been established. Miko and Jack take a parental role, attempting to comfort him, regardless of whatever their differences were a minute ago. Once their comforting words don't work, Miko seems to have given up, but Jack distracts Raph by asking him,
"What do you make of that?"
diverting Raph's attention away from his fear and his hopelessness by showing him how valuable he is to the group. This also shows that although Miko is capable of being mature, Jack is still the one taking a more leadership position. Raph realizes that what's on the screen is an equation. He lays down his bag to get out a flash drive when suddenly a con enters the room. The kids try to run away, but once Raph realizes he forgot his bag, he rushes back to get it and gets cornered by the con. Shoot first and ask questions never, Raph is barely saved by Jack as Miko takes a pick.
Not of that! Of that!
Oh.
And the kids rush out into the hallway. Meanwhile, the bots finally make it to Fowler. Starscream threatens to blast him if he's approached, regardless of the fact that he's definitely outgunned. At a stalemate,
The evil says, yeah.
dang Scream, you broke him and also broke your advantage as you barely escaped. Starscream's escapes so far have been really cool, I just wanted to point that out. The kids are at gunpoint in the hall, ready to be blasted when Bulkhead bashes the con full WWE style before they all head to get off this ship. We see that Optimus and Ratchet overcame insurmountable odds as they learn that Megatron just used that as a testing ground and has far bigger plans.
If this wasn't Megatron's endgame, what is?
Back at the base, Optimus scolds Bulkhead as Miko defends him and relays the info that they gathered. Once she starts celebrating their victory, though, it leads to...
Raph was almost killed. This isn't a game. When are you gonna get that through your thick skull?
As Prime says,
Putting you in harm's way was never our intent. However, it is no longer the safety of you three that is at risk, but the safety of all humankind. We will respect your decision if you wish to leave.
Ratchet's quick as always, immediately opening the bridge and saying,
No point in long goodbyes, here's the door.
Then Jack leaves, leaving RC partnerless yet again. This was a bit forced, but he did almost die saving Raph and Miko twice today, so I can't really blame him. Back at base, Starscream is getting his due punishment, saving himself by saying,
I know how to set your plans back on course!
You better be right, Screamer. Although Megs has a lot of patience for your betrayal and stupidity, your two finest traits. We then shift to Jack's house as Miko arrives. She talks about her life in a bid to convince Jack that,
Dude, hear me out. You're no fry cook. You're a rock star. Stop trying to pretend you're normal, Jack.
She says that,
Back home in Tokyo, I have loving parents and two purebred cats, Chi-Chi and Ding Dong. I went to the best school, took piano lessons since I was 3.
How nice for you.
No, how boring. It wasn't me. Why do you think I jumped at the chance to transfer here?
To Jasper, Nevada, the entertainment capital of the world.
Yeah, well, the brochure lied. Piano lessons were starting to look pretty good, in fact. But then, the last couple of days happened.
Do you have a point?
You bet. I saw what you did today. When you saved Raph. When you came to save me.
showing that she's smarter than she lets on, but she's just missing that spark, and is tired of settling with mediocrity, which is something we can all relate to in some respect. Sadly, it doesn't work, with Jack being stubborn as a mule, saying,
I've been raised to be responsible. To my schoolwork, to my mom, my job.
As well as...
Thanks, Miko, but I think normal suits me fine.
The episode ends with Ratchet learning that the picture of the screen was blueprints for a space bridge, and that it could only mean one thing.
Megatron may not be using it to leave Earth, but to bring through his conquering army.
Now I know in this episode I decided to call Starscream stupid and treacherous, which in most iterations is true, but I feel like this one leans more onto the Armada version, because whenever Megatron is around, Starscream does want his praise. He just wants Megatron's approval. But whenever Megatron's not around, he has no problem taking the mantle and being in charge, because he believes he deserves that, and he is still trying to earn it. He's not completely disloyal. He does care about Megatron, and he does want Megatron in charge. but at the same time, he still wants a leadership position, and he still wants to one day be able to rise to those ranks, no matter what gets him there. He's not in full traitor territory just yet, because he hasn't been pushed to the point that he's there, but he's already in the mindset of, I'm a good leader, I want to be a good leader, I'm going to be a good leader, and I don't care what I gotta do to get there. But as of right now, I'm okay with Megatron being leader, because I know he's not going to be leader forever, and he may give me a leadership position in the future. He holds out hope for acknowledgement, for respect, for some semblance of somebody looking towards him as a leader, as somebody worthy of being looked towards, as somebody worthy to being looked up to. I wanted to go ahead and establish that. Like, I am insulting him, and he is those things, but he's not quite there yet. And his character arc to get there, I mean, it's pretty good. I don't think it's as good as Armada at all. I may not be the biggest fan of Transformers Armada. It has some writing issues here and there, and the original dub was not great. But Starscream and Armada, even the voice actor for the English dub of Starscream and Armada was perfect. They did really well there. Anyway, on to the next episode. The episode begins with Optimus going over,
We cannot allow Megatron to send Dark Energon through his space bridge. If we fail, the dead of Cybertron will rise, swarm through its vortex, and invade Earth, bending humankind to Megatron's twisted rule.
And then we see Jack riding his bike to work as RC pulls in and this conversation happens.
Tell Optimus I respect him big time, but if you're at war with the Decepticons, there's nothing I can do to help.
Optimus didn't send me, and no one's asking for your help.
Okay, so if we both agree that I'm not warrior material,
Jack, I just lost someone I cared about. Maybe it's the grief talking. Maybe you're growing on me. Whatever it is, I'm just not ready to say goodbye.
Here we get a taste of the grief and regret that RC feels from losing Cliff, and as we find out in the future, Tailgate as well. We also learn Jack's real feelings. He's not so much scared of the danger, but insecure of his ability to contribute against it, which honestly connects him to RC fairly well, because one of her insecurities is the fact that she might not be able to protect her partner and she doesn't want to lose another. We then cut back to Team Prime as they learn the location of the space bridge and decide to make a risky move to get to it first.
The ground bridge has limited range. Stretched all the way into orbit, its vortex could snap and scatter us to the stars.
RC gets back, the kids send off their bots, and Ratchet gives another witty remark.
If you leave me stranded on a planet teeming with humans, I will never forgive you.
It's blink or you'll miss it, but during Optimus's response, he smiles for a second. Wholesome. It shows that even though Prime may be uptight, his seriousness shouldn't be misconstrued for not caring, for not having a heart, for not feeling other emotions. He is capable of being excited, of being happy, of being glad. He may even be capable of laughing, which is something you don't really see in Optimus iterations. I just really like that it was there, and I like that they didn't focus on it, that it was a smile and then he was back to business. The Autobots safely make it to the bridge, but with no means to destroy it, have to resort to protecting it instead. Megatron, however, is getting onto Starscream, but when Scream says,
No need for concern, Master. The sound wave is locking onto Cybertron's coordinates, per my instructions.
Megs actually looks like he's considering something here. He doesn't ridicule nor threaten Scream, he just gives that look. It really makes you wonder if maybe some part of him does want to say, well good, Starscream, but he doesn't. It leaves a lot of questions to their dynamic and to Megatron as a whole. Optimus zooms in on some damage to the warship and says it's
Interstellar navigation system.
And Blockhead claims it as,
Huh, that's my handiwork.
This does a good job showing how continuity will work in the show, that even small actions could have big consequences, and we have no idea on what could be important, just like Boghead did not. Raph, realizing a way that the Decepticons could target Cybertron, not only shows his intelligence, but the intelligence of the cons, and how accustomed they've already gotten to Earth. Jack comes up with a plan to get Raph into the satellite system, proving his worth that he fails to see, as Miko gives a sound argument proving the intelligence she hinted at earlier. Captain Obvious opens his mouth.
The Autobots are up to something.
Really, Starscream?
And the attack commences on the bots. Meanwhile, the kids bridge to a satellite station, break in, and see that the cons have done the same. Raph takes the opportunity to put the schematics onto a USB drive, getting into the system, and gets ready to combat none other than Soundwave. As Soundwave moves the satellite, the space bridge shifts, stopping when Raph changes it back.
Indeed, Bumblebee. This can only be Raph's doing.
Soundwave gets wise that there's an intruder and immobilizes Raph's ability to use the computer, as well as anyone's ability to move the satellites by cutting the cord. Miko and him exchange pics before Starscream starts the space bridge. Once it's booted up, Megatron flexes on his haters by throwing what's practically a meteor through zero gravity and into the portal, resurrecting the fallen. No, not him. Yes, them. In order to prevent them from crossing over, Optimus decides blowing the bridge is the best course of action, resulting in this.
Optimus, I must say, the space bridge is our sole hope of ever returning to Cybertron. Are you certain its destruction is the only option?
This goes well with Ratchet's character. Since the show started, he's had nothing but disdain for Earth, and holding on to the hope of returning to Cybertron makes far more sense than anything. He still sees it as home. When Optimus says destroying the bridge is the only option, Ratchet says,
"Then by all means, let us light our darkest hour."
Showing us straight from before that regardless of his personal feelings, loyalty and friendship come first. Balkby and RC head to the base of the bridge to await Ratchet's instructions as Optimus confronts Megatron.
I hold no illusions about engaging your army, Megatron. But I might derail its objective by removing its head. One shall stand, one shall fall.
The two battle it out, mostly on equal footing with Megatron having a slight edge. Before Optimus becomes Optimus though, he is called away from Starscream, who is wise on the Autobots' plan, heading to stop them. RC reverses the current of the bridge, causing it to implode on itself, but gets shot in the process. Too bad for Megs, it wasn't in time to save his army. In a strangely sympathetic turn, he reaches a hand out to them as the bridge explodes, seemingly leaving nothing in its wake. This does a good job showing that the blood running through Megatron's veins is the same as the blood running through theirs, so his connection to the fallen warriors is more of a father-to-kid figure, and he did not want his new kids to die. Later in the series, we'll learn more about this Dark Energon, but until then...
That's quite a theory.
Right now, Megatron has the most control over it. The Autobots escape through their bridge, and Starscream will...
It is with deep sorrow that I note for the log, Megatron's spark has been extinguished. All hail Starscream.
This shows what I brought up earlier about Starscream wanting to be in control, but also caring about Megatron, since before Megatron went kablooey, Starscream said,
Lord Megatron, don't be a fool! Take flight and retreat!
Whereas, if Starscream just wanted to take control through any circumstances, he would have just let him explode with no warning whatsoever. As they await the bot's return, Ratchet says,
4 life signals. One very faint.
And we watch as the humans anxiously await the arrival of their partners. The fear on their faces, the emotions portrayed, till B comes in carrying RC. Raph and Miko comfort Jack as Ratchet breaks our heart.
We lost 1 this week. By the Allspark, don't let it be 2.
Jack then grabs RC's hand, and the music, mixed with their words, almost make a man cry.
Jack, really? There are other motorcycles in the world.
But you're my first.
And yes, I know the dialogue's a little cringe here, but dang am I a sucker for this. The episode ends with Optimus declaring,
Without a means of leaving this world, we Autobots take strength in the bonds we have forged with our 3 young friends. True warriors, if not in body, then in spirit. My My name is Optimus Prime, and I send this message. Though we did not choose to be of Earth, it would seem that we are here to stay. If you approach this planet with hostile intent, know this: we will defend ourselves. We will defend humanity. We will defend our home.
And this is the start of Transformers Prime. So did it start well? In my opinion, it did. I really enjoyed Transformers Prime, and I think although they did rush a few things, having all this time to flesh out what they wanted, did a good job fleshing out the characters to a point that I want to watch them to see more. And it did a good job fleshing out the future conflicts, the current conflicts, the power of Energon, everything. A lot was established in 5 episodes. But what was established is groundwork, is framework, is the foundation for the series going forward, and a reason for us to tune in. I've given you all the info you need to make your own decision, so in the comments below, let's talk about it together. And if I missed anything or you disagree with anything, let me know and do it respectfully, as well as respect other people in the comments with opinions different than yours. I'll see you there till all are one. Have a great day.